As wizards passed down through generations, their divine blood thinned. To keep their power, they turned to blood potions. But by Slytherin's time, the ingredients for these potions were nearly extinct. This worried Feeney about the potion supplies he had asked Lisa to help grow. When blood potions faded, a new method emerged, the blood sublimation ceremony. Both potions and rituals could only slightly improve bloodline purity, never enough to reach godhood. So, the four founders began their research. Ravenclaw studied the origins of magic. Gryffindor aimed to become magical beasts. Hufflepuff sought to merge many bloodlines for strength. Slytherin wanted to find power in his blood and purify it beyond that of gods. Feeney realized his path was similar to Slytherin's, especially since he had the inheritances of the other founders. He knew he had an easier time than Slytherin, who could have changed the world back then. Slytherin developed a method to directly merge magical animal blood with his own. While Hufflepuff relied on blood from other wizards, Slytherin used the blood of magical creatures, ensuring it wasn't diluted. He only fused with creatures compatible with his own bloodline. For example, Slytherin merged with basilisk blood, a type of snake linked to his family's lineage. This allowed him to purify his blood because the source was already divine. In the past, wizard bloodlines were limited. Wizards typically married within their families or with muggles, leading to squibs and muggleborns today. Although modern wizards lack the raw power of ancient ones, they now have more options for bloodline combinations. For instance, Feeney could choose the Tengu subspecies from the Black family, or snake blood from Slytherin. He suspected he had some civet blood, as his animagus form was a cat, reflecting his lineage. After reading Slytherin's first notebook, which contained historical truths and guesses, Feeney picked up the second one. It recorded the formula for Slytherin's first blood fusion potion, which was successful and used common materials to stabilize and enhance absorption. Feeney took note of the recipe and continued through the pages. He found records of successful tests and discovered that one of Slytherin's subjects was a wizard named Crabbe, an ancestor of Draco Malfoy. Interestingly, Crabbe's family was originally Muggle. Slytherin had found a way to create wizards, but it was unstable. Of two modified Muggles, only Crabbe succeeded. The other was Flint, whose bloodline was a troll's. Slytherin noted how surprising it was that a creature like a troll could merge successfully. Feeney recalled that today's giants, like trolls, lack intelligence because the smarter ones were wiped out by wizards long ago. The giants' bloodline also traces back to the Titan giants, a race of gods. Feeney then read Slytherin's final conjecture. He realized that while merging magical bloodlines could enhance power, it wouldn't restore the original bloodline. Slytherin began to explore how to fuse a second bloodline. The third notebook detailed the development of this second blood fusion potion. Slytherin tested many plans, noting that the potion had to address bloodline rejection. Each plan ended with a summary of failures, but Feeney imagined how groundbreaking Slytherin's work was. If successful, it could change the wizard-muggle conflict. Slytherin finalized several plans, most suited for muggles. The last one, however, was the blood-melting grass, capable of fusing multiple bloodlines. This was groundbreaking and explained why this secret room remained hidden. The following notebooks explored integrating multiple bloodlines, a method Slytherin pioneered. After taking these potions, one would gain talents from the chosen bloodline. Feeney learned a lot from Slytherin's notes. For instance, hatching a basilisk wasn't as simple as using a toad to hatch a rooster's egg. The real method involved finding a snake egg and delaying its hatching with a potion before incubating it with a rooster for 2 months. This explained why basilisks were called the Snake King. They were born from snake eggs but mutated through the ritual process. The horns on their heads came from multiple full moons, unrelated to roosters. Toads and roosters were merely part of the ritual, not essential. Even Slytherin's basilisk, Bask, wasn't hatched by a rooster, showing Slytherin's caution in protecting his research. These notes, including bloodline fusion rituals and potions, were Slytherin's legacy for future generations, a path to godhood. The other founders' inheritances also hinted at this possibility, but like Hufflepuff's, the path to becoming a god had its drawbacks. There's no set path to becoming a god. Slytherin might not have realized this when he left his legacy. Among the founders, only Hufflepuff was part of the council. Even though Slytherin was a powerful family, he didn't think he'd ever join. So, he was unaware of the quota. Hufflepuff learned about the status of gods only after Ravenclaw died and the others became demigods. They made choices based on their paths. Feeney closed the notes and looked around the room filled with bookshelves, shaking his head. Compared to the other founders, Slytherin's legacy resembled Ravenclaw's. The vast knowledge seemed to fit Ravenclaw's philosophy. But Slytherin focused on bloodlines and inheritance. A pureblood family's strength comes from its legacy, which is often knowledge and books. So, it made sense that this place was Slytherin's inheritance. Feeney felt a mix of emotions. What should he do about the basilisk in the Chamber of Secrets? It was a huge creature. He could hide a baby basilisk, but Bask was too big to move without drawing attention. He could take the books from the room in Puff's suitcase, but not Bask. Puff's suitcase was large, but it couldn't hold adult magical creatures like basilisks or dragons. Feeney couldn't leave Bask behind. The Chamber of Secrets would open next semester, and he didn't want Luna, a sweet girl, to face danger at Hogwarts. If he couldn't take Bask, he could visit the Malfoy family over the holidays and get the diary from Lucius. He had planned to showcase the Malfoy family's power when he defended them on the train earlier this semester. Even if they didn't reach an agreement, the Malfoys would have to ally with the Black family. Feeney preferred not to ask for the diary directly, as it was a Horcrux, Tom Riddle's first one. It was different from other Horcruxes, having its own wisdom and the ability to control those who touched it. Feeney wanted to avoid touching it, so his first choice was to take Bask away. If the basilisk was gone, the diary wouldn't pose a threat at Hogwarts. He could always give the diary to Dumbledore next year, along with the Hufflepuff Gold Cup. With the Gold Cup, he'd have 2 Horcruxes, and according to his deal with Dumbledore, he could exchange one for a favor. The diary, however, needed careful planning. Feeney considered destroying the diary at Malfoy's house, but Dumbledore might want clues from it. After some thought, he decided to destroy it. Feeling relieved, he snapped his fingers with a smile. Puff, let's take all these books. Puff appeared and started working, placing intact books in Feeney's suitcase. Damaged ones would be repaired, and if any were beyond saving, Puff would note their titles for Feeney to check his library. Feeney then exited the Slytherin statue. Bask sensed his presence and hissed, "Food." Feeney was taken aback. Who knew this powerful creature would act like a foodie? He asked, "Bask, is there only one exit here?" Bask nodded, hissing, "Yes, behind the stone statue." Feeney found a hidden hole behind the statue, small and restricted. It required a special spell left by Slytherin to enter. Luckily, he had found that spell in the room. This was Slytherin's backdoor. In Hogwarts' early days, Muggles hunted wizards, so the founders created escape routes to protect young wizards from discovery. Gryffindor set up stone puppets for protection. Hufflepuff used magical plants and creatures in the Forbidden Forest. Ravenclaw enchanted the castle's stairs to slow down Muggles. Slytherin raised basilisks to guard the school and left this exit for emergencies. Although one basilisk was eaten, one remained to protect the school. Slytherin respected Muggles but also understood the need for safety. Feeney stepped into the dark passage, which was surprisingly clean. After walking a distance, he discovered a large space filled with moldy food, a safe house for wizards during Muggle attacks. Feeney had a purpose for using this passage. According to Slytherin's notes, it led to the Forbidden Forest, near where Hagrid kept acromantulas, perfect food for Bask. As he emerged from the tunnel, Feeney noted how well hidden it was. He hadn't been to the acromantula's nest before, but he knew they liked dark, moist places. The environment grew dim and rancid. Feeney knew he had arrived at his destination and became cautious. Acromantulas were dangerous, with keen senses and deadly venom. But with his preparations, they weren't as threatening. He found a clearing and waved his wand to create a battlefield. He didn't want to fight them in groups. 2 acromantulas noticed him and crept closer. Feeney quickly turned and cast a cutting spell, slicing one in half. He whistled and pulled out a box from his robe, dropping it to the ground. It expanded instantly. Feeney levitated the acromantula and tossed it inside. Just then, he heard rustling in the woods. More acromantulas were trying to surround him, but with the trees cleared, he could see them coming. The danger of surprise attacks was diminished. But this was the only thing destroyed. The acromantula Feeney killed wasn't alone. There were others that must have gone back to inform their kind. Soon, he'd be surrounded by a swarm of acromantulas. These spiders worked like a wolf pack, using teamwork to trap their prey. Feeney could handle them at first, but his magic would wear out over time. Eventually, he'd be overwhelmed, even if he killed many. Acromantulas shouldn't be in the Forbidden Forest. Hagrid released them here, and without natural enemies, they multiplied far beyond their usual numbers. Dumbledore knew when Hagrid introduced the acromantulas, but he didn't expect Hagrid to breed them, turning pets into a colony. As Feeney saw the acromantulas crawling closer, he knew he had to act fast. He waved his wand and cast a spell. Burning flames. A huge fireball shot from his wand, lighting up the dark woods. Finney controlled the flames, creating a wall of fire around him, leaving a small gap for the spiders to enter, just one at a time. With the firewall protecting him, he had time to prepare and could apparate away if needed. This advantage allowed him to safely hunt the acromantulas and gather food. Finney wasn't reckless. He knew his magic would eventually run out. When it did, he could either surround himself with the firewall and leave or call Puff for help. Unfortunately, he underestimated the survival instincts of these creatures. The acromantulas stopped in front of the firewall, waiting instead of attacking. As more spiders arrived, Finney grew concerned. He knew that many insects had survival tactics against flames. For example, ants would form a ball and roll through the fire, losing some but allowing most to survive. Finney worried the acromantulas might do something similar, but luckily, they weren't as self-sacrificing. They were selfish creatures and preferred to retreat when facing fire. Yet, the food they craved was behind the firewall, causing chaos among them. Finally, a skinny 6-foot acromantula crawled through the gap. Finney's wand glowed red and cut the spider in half. He chose this spell because he wasn't sure how resistant the acromantula was to others. After the acromantula fell, Finney noticed its legs were singed, showing there had been fights outside the firewall. The flames had become weapons. Before the next acromantula could enter, Finney used his glove to float the dead one into his box. Acromantulas were strong, but their quality was lower than other dangerous creatures. Their strength lay in their numbers and sneak attacks. The deaths of several acromantulas agitated the others. They had never tasted human flesh because Hagrid's pet, Aragog, forbade it. Most of their food came from centaurs or other creatures. But Finney's scent was tempting, making them eager for a meal. Still, they feared the fire. As the number of dead spiders grew, they began to retreat. Even if they didn't, Finney was ready to leave. His box was already filled with acromantula meat. The retreating acromantulas didn't leave entirely. They changed tactics, sending smaller ones through the gap. These could fit 2 or 3 at a time. This was bad news for Finney. More spiders meant more magic used to deal with them. If he didn't act quickly, he'd be overwhelmed. It's really bad, he sighed, merging the firewall and closing the gap. Now only a few acromantulas were inside. Finney's skills allowed him to dispatch the remaining spiders quickly. He knew he couldn't stay to hunt any longer. Time was running out. After disposing of the acromantulas, Finney vanished into the flames. He reappeared in Slytherin's Chamber of Secrets, at the back door. As he stepped out of the tunnel, Bask sensed him. The vibrations of Finney's footsteps caught his attention, and he remembered the scent of food. Finney spoke in a snake-like accent to keep control. He needed to ensure Bask didn't open his eyes or lash out, as that could be dangerous. Fortunately, Bask obeyed Finney, eager for food. Finney opened the box and tossed out the acromantula body. Bask opened his mouth wide, ready to eat. Finney smiled, but that smile faded as Bask devoured the last of the acromantulas. He was still hungry. Finney realized Bask hadn't eaten in a long time. The last time the chamber was opened was 50 years ago when Riddle came for power, leaving Bask without food. Killing the acromantulas was tiring, but Finney knew he couldn't go back to their habitat. He didn't want to face those creepy, 8-legged creatures again. If Bask was going to be full, he needed to take him away from here. But that led back to the problem of being discovered by Dumbledore. If Dumbledore found out about the basilisk, Finney's secret would be exposed. He had no intention of revealing his abilities. With no other options but the pipeline, Finney sighed. Bask, you go to sleep first. I'll take you out to eat enough. Bask nodded and crawled back into the statue. Finney then summoned Puff to expand the tunnel before leaving Slytherin's secret room. Tonight had gone smoothly, despite some twists along the way. When Finney emerged, he found the twins. He learned that shortly after Harry and the others entered the 4th floor, Dumbledore returned to Hogwarts and waited in the corridor. Finney thought about visiting Voldemort, but quickly shook off the idea. He was a Slytherin, not a Gryffindor. He wouldn't act recklessly. Finney knew his best move was to stay low-key, work on his strength, and secretly plan against the mysterious man. He just wanted to sit back, relax, and watch Harry and the mysterious man battle it out. Before becoming a legendary wizard, he needed to keep an eye on the Elder Council and any demigods. Those would be his competitors. To avoid irrational thoughts, Finney decided to hide in the room of requirement today. He found the twins and Jordan in the corridor and said, Dumbledore's plan will likely succeed tonight. The corridor at the 4th floor won't be cleared overnight. If you want to take the risk, tomorrow morning is the best time. By then, the dangers will be gone, and the guards won't be as strict. You can check out the situation. The twins were a bit disappointed. They thought they could take the risk tonight after Finney's earlier warning. But they trusted him. If he said it was dangerous now, they wouldn't go. The twins and Jordan returned to the Gryffindor common room, only to find Ron missing. They worried about what Finney said regarding Dumbledore's test for Harry and the dangers that might arise. Without calling Finney or Jordan, they headed to the end of the corridor on the 4th floor. Finney didn't know what they encountered there. He was busy reviewing his night's accomplishments in the Room of Requirement. First, he completed the inheritance tasks from the 4 founders. There was a clear difference between modern magic and ancient magic. As powerful wizards who founded Hogwarts, their strength was unquestionable. They left behind some ancient magic. Finney's side quest was to find and inherit this magic. Completing all tasks would reward him with designated magic talent, a full-level Patronus spell, and proficiency in apparition, legilimency, and occlumency. Plus, he'd earn the title of 4 Saints' heir and a deed to Hogwarts, which he needed to collect from the principal's office behind the portrait of Principal Gaunt. He also completed the exploration task by entering the Chamber of Secrets and finding Slytherin's lab. Now, he could claim his rewards. Exploring Hogwarts meant visiting all key locations, including classrooms, common rooms, and secret passages. He unlocked the hidden achievement, Explore Hogwarts, reaching 100% progress and earning mastery of Fiendfire, including its counter-curse. This was a coveted achievement for Finney. Fiendfire was powerful dark magic, and he hadn't learned it yet. While he could seek out the Black family elders for training, mastering Fiendfire required practice and guidance from someone experienced. If it got out of control, it could destroy everything. Fortunately, the counter-curse made Fiendfire a weapon for Finney, turning a dangerous spell into a useful tool. Without it, he wouldn't dare use such risky magic. The rewards from exploring Slytherin's chamber, occlumency and legilimency, were crucial for Finney. Mastering these would open doors to becoming a great wizard. With skills in Transfiguration, Animagus, Patronus, legilimency, and occlumency, he was on the path to greatness. Completing these tasks also unlocked 2 new ones, the Mystery of Time. He had to follow the tasks in order. Task 1 was to obtain a Time Turner and master time magic. Task 2 involved time travel using the Time Turner. Task 3 required him to change the past without being discovered. Finney felt uneasy about these tasks appearing now. If they had come earlier, he could have used the Time Turner from last semester. Unfortunately, he missed that opportunity. Without a Time Turner, he couldn't explore time magic, making it impossible to complete the first task. The others would be even harder without it. These tasks couldn't be skipped either. Finney had to find a Time Turner to crack the mystery of time. He was puzzled by these tasks. Even legendary wizards struggled with time magic. If becoming a great wizard meant controlling memory, the next step was mastering the magic of the soul. No wizard or god had mastered time and space. Only one demigod attempted to understand time, but his chance to ascend was lost. The Time Turners in the magical world were based on his findings, including those from Ravenclaw, but many were damaged. Finney recalled the Time Turners only mentioned in the original story when Harry and Hermione traveled back to save Sirius. Their actions seemed to always have happened, not changing the past but making it possible. Setting aside these difficult tasks, Finney began writing his 3rd academic paper to fulfill his goal of 5 published papers. He had already published 2, one on improvements to the Wolfsbane potion and another on ancient magic texts. Now, he was writing about transfiguration, focusing on techniques for transforming energy forms. He planned his 4th paper on the Philosopher's Stone, but he wouldn't reveal its secrets. His final paper would address the magical foundations of the wizarding world, which needed improvement. Hogwarts didn't thoroughly teach young wizards the nature of magic. Finney wanted to change that. His paper would clarify the structure of magic, helping young wizards understand not just how to use magic but why it worked that way. This was vital for the entire magical world. Unfortunately, pureblood families often silenced such ideas, wanting to keep magical knowledge exclusive. As Finney continued planning and writing, time passed quietly. The next day, Hogwarts had resumed classes since exams were over. Everyone was waiting for their results and the final Quidditch match, Gryffindor versus Ravenclaw. Normally, it would be close, but rumors spread that Harry and the Weasley twins were in the hospital. Finney was shocked. The twins were fine last night, and he told them to avoid danger. Then it hit him, Ron was with Harry last night. The twins must have gone to check on Ron instead of taking the risk Finney imagined. If that was the case, the twins were doing well, even if they often acted adventurous. With Harry in the hospital, Hogwarts felt unusually calm. Gryffindor had lost the Quidditch game, and everyone was worried about the twins and Harry. Letland's sarcasm went ignored. As long as Gryffindor and Slytherin weren't fighting, Hogwarts stayed peaceful. Surprisingly, there hadn't been any fights between the two houses leading up to the year-end party. Draco and Ron, usually enemies, had a quiet couple of days. Ron seemed to have gotten smarter, ignoring Draco's taunts instead of reacting like before. On the second day after Harry was hospitalized, Dumbledore approached Finny and asked, "You told the Weasley twins about Harry, right?" Finny nodded, "Yeah, but as we agreed, they were supposed to check out the traps for Harry this morning. You know how much George and Fred love risks. I didn't expect them to think Ron would join Harry's adventure." Dumbledore sighed, "If I had arrived a bit later last night, all three of them could have been in danger." He then explained what happened. Just like in the original story, Harry got the fake philosopher's stone hidden by Dumbledore in the Mirror of Erist. That stone was a trap for the mysterious man and a test for Harry's character. Dumbledore wouldn't leave the real stone there, fearing the mysterious man might return. When the mysterious man realized Harry had the stone, the battle began. Quirrell attacked, triggering the magic left by Lily, which should have allowed Harry to defeat him. But then Ron and Neville showed up, realizing Harry was facing the Dark Lord alone. The twins jumped into action. Fred pushed Quirrell away from Harry, while George urged Harry to escape. But Fred got caught, and Quirrell used him as a hostage to force Harry to surrender. Confused, Harry considered handing over the stone for Fred's safety, but George rushed in. Both twins knew the stone was hidden there but didn't realize it was a fake. They were ready to sacrifice themselves to prevent the mysterious man from getting it. Harry, brave but impulsive, charged forward, leading to a chaotic fight. Finny couldn't believe it. The kids might not think to use magic in such a crisis, while Quirrell and the mysterious man had plenty of combat experience. Despite their injuries, the three kids managed to defeat Quirrell. When Dumbledore arrived, he found them unconscious after the bizarre scene of three kids battling Quirrell. Dumbledore took them to the hospital for treatment. Unlike in the original story, Harry suffered physical injuries and fell into a coma. "I need to train the twins and Harry better," Finny complained. As wizards, they shouldn't forget to use their wands in a fight. Dumbledore nodded, recalling how shocked he was to see Harry and the twins tackling Quirrell like that. It was like expecting a sweet treat and biting into something unpleasant. Finny seized the moment. "So, Professor, can Harry stay with me and Sirius during the holidays?" If Harry spent the break at Black's house, Sirius would be around, making things easier for Finny. He wasn't sure how to spend 2 months with Sirius, who he barely knew after more than 10 years apart. Dumbledore shook his head. "Finny, you know the curse on Harry is serious. It was just an accident." Finny interrupted, "I don't think it was an accident. Lily's magic was likely a backup plan to protect Harry when the mysterious man attacked." Dumbledore paused, then sighed, "Maybe you're right. But they must have overlooked something, otherwise, Tom's soul wouldn't be connected to Harry. Now, about your suggestion, Harry's protection magic comes from his blood. After Hagrid took him from the ruins, I cast a spell on him and his aunt. It absorbs energy from their blood and protects him until he's 16. Finny understood. "But, Professor, Harry only needs to stay with his aunt for about a week each year. Wouldn't it be better if he spent the rest of the time with Sirius and me? Our house is protected by your loyalty charm." Dumbledore considered it, rolling his eyes. Finny didn't rush him, enjoying the treats prepared by the house elves, especially the special candy made for Dumbledore. After a moment, Dumbledore asked, "What if I invite Sirius to Hogwarts as the defense against the dark arts professor?" Finny was surprised. "That sounds great, but I'll remind Sirius to resign before the end of the semester. You know the curse on that position." Dumbledore agreed, "You're right. I had another candidate in mind." Finny thought of the fraudulent professor from the original story, who taught Harry not to take everything at face value, even if Harry didn't remember it. Who was the original candidate, Professor? Gilderoy Lockhart, a Hogwarts graduate from Ravenclaw. He's a famous adventurer and author. He's published many books, including Breaking with the Ghost and Traveling with Trolls. He's even won awards. As Dumbledore spoke, Finny noticed his teasing smile. It seemed Dumbledore knew Lockhart was a fraud and was inviting him to stir up trouble. Dumbledore had likely exhausted all options for the position due to the curse. Lockhart's acceptance might have been Dumbledore's last resort. With Sirius available now, Dumbledore would likely choose him over Lockhart. Finny smiled. Professor, Lockhart is a fraud. The wizard who killed the werewolf and used the restoration spell wasn't him. Oh. Professor, I have many werewolves under my command. I investigated the restoration incident and found a short wizard with a beard who had lost his memory. He didn't remember anything, including the restoration spell. Our people found Lockhart, and with truth serum, we learned he lied about everything. Dumbledore nodded. True, but to write those books, he had to experience some of it. Even if he's fake, the stories are based on real events. Finney sighed. I'll talk to Sirius. So, Professor, is this a condition for Harry to spend the holiday with us? Dumbledore nodded. Yes, but he must stay with his aunt for a week first. Finney agreed. Do you have anything else? I'm heading to the hospital to check on Harry, George, Fred, and the others. They haven't woken up yet. I'll let you know when they do. But you might want to watch the Quidditch match this afternoon. Finney shrugged. You know I'm not into Quidditch. Dumbledore said, you should go. After last night's chaos with the eight-eyed giant spider, you need to relax. Finney's heart raced. Dumbledore seemed to know more about last night than he let on. He hoped Dumbledore didn't know everything, especially about the basilisk. He wanted to ensure Puff and the others finished their work and that he could safely take Bask away before the semester ended. With Finney around, Hogwarts would be safe. If problems arose, he could bring Bask back, avoiding the fate from the original story where Bask was killed by Harry. Even if he got the diary, Finney couldn't guarantee Dumbledore wouldn't use Bask to train and test Harry. After saying goodbye to Dumbledore, Finney went to watch the Quidditch match. Dumbledore had suggested it, so he felt he had to go. Ravenclaw won easily. With the Gryffindor twins and Harry in the hospital, and Ravenclaw's talented seeker, Qiu Zhang, the game had no suspense. 3 days passed quickly. On this day, Dumbledore asked Fawkes to deliver a letter to Finney. It simply read, "They woke up, Dumbledore." Finney knew this meant Harry, George, and Fred were awake. Dumbledore had promised to notify him as soon as they woke up. If it were anyone else, Dumbledore might have visited Harry first. But with Finney, he didn't need to hide anything. Finney understood the situation well. The Philosopher's Stone might be precious to others, but he knew his old friend Nico had shared his alchemy knowledge with him, so there was no need to avoid discussing it. Finney also knew about the mysterious man and Quirrell's possession from their previous discussions. Dumbledore even brought Finney along to see Harry, wanting to ensure his plans went smoothly, though many had already been disrupted. Harry woke up that morning but fell asleep again after taking medicine. The twins woke up in the middle of the night, but the pain kept them from sleeping. They envied Harry's peaceful rest. Finney and Dumbledore arrived at noon. Ms. Pomfrey expected Harry to wake up around this time, thanks to her effective medicine. Hi, George, Fred, Finney greeted the twins, and Dumbledore smiled. Good afternoon, gentlemen. The twins were excited to see Finney but were about to complain when he interrupted. Why did you go to the classroom at the end of the corridor on the 4th floor that night? I told you to go in the morning. Finney was serious. Even though the twins acted to protect Harry and Ron, their actions caused trouble. If they didn't give a good explanation, he'd change how he treated them in the future. The twins sensed Finney's anger and felt guilty. They realized their actions were unnecessary. They had seen how Quirrell died before falling into a coma. If they hadn't intervened, Harry would have won more easily. Seeing them silent, Finney took a deep breath and said, I heard you were trying to save Ron. Did you not think? This was a test set by the headmaster to keep Harry safe. Why did you break into it? You knew I'd join later, which could change everything and put Harry in danger. Finney felt frustrated. Haven't you been scared? If Harry hadn't discovered Quirrell's weakness, or if Quirrell had killed one of you, what would have happened? You're Gryffindors, not reckless idiots. Such thoughtless behavior isn't like you. If it were Harry or Ron, I wouldn't be surprised, but you. I've always told you to think before acting. Brute force is useless and can lead to bad outcomes. If I don't teach you a lesson now, I won't share any risky information with you in the future. Dumbledore blushed at Finney's words, recalling his own past mistakes. He was older now and preferred to use his brain. Finney wanted to tell the 3 Gryffindors in the ward, using your brain is important. Don't waste it. As the twins stayed silent, Harry slowly opened his eyes and saw Dumbledore. He blinked, confused. Good afternoon, Harry. Dumbledore greeted him with a smile. Finney sighed, waved his hand at the twins, and cast a spell to shield their conversation from them. How are you feeling, Harry? Harry looked at Finney, still dazed. Then suddenly, he shouted, "Quick! Sir, Finney, the Philosopher's Stone. Quirrell has it. Hurry!" Finney sighed, about to respond when Dumbledore said, "Relax, Harry. What you said is outdated." He paused before continuing, "Quirrell did not get the Philosopher's Stone." "Then who did?" Harry asked, still excited. Finney replied, "Calm down, Harry, or Ms. Pomfrey will kick us out. No one got the stone. Remember what I told you at the start of the school year? The Philosopher's Stone is important to most, but to those who can truly obtain it, it's not that valuable." Harry swallowed, looked around, and began to calm down. He realized he was in the hospital, lying on a white sheet with a table full of candies beside him. "They're all gifts from your friends and admirers," Dumbledore said, smiling. "What happened with Quirrell in the underground classroom is a secret that spread quickly. Everyone knows about it now. Your friend Ron played a big part. Thanks to Ron's big mouth, it was no longer a secret at Hogwarts, and it became even more bizarre that Harry saved the world." "How long have I been here?" Harry asked. Finney sat in a chair next to the bed. 3 days. Neville and Ron will be relieved to know you're awake." They were worried. As he spoke, Finney grabbed a piece of candy from the table and offered some to Dumbledore. "But, Sir, Finney, the Philosopher's Stone." Finney grimaced, "Ugh, this tastes like booger. I hate Bertie Bott's every flavor beans." Then he reassured Harry, "Don't worry, the Philosopher's Stone is safe." Dumbledore added, "Yes, Harry. Since you're curious, let me explain. The stone was destroyed." "Destroyed? What about your friend, Nico Flamel?" Harry asked, puzzled. Dumbledore was surprised. "You know about Nico? Did Finney tell you?" He was pleased, seeing Harry was thinking clearly. "Nico and I agreed this was the best choice," Dumbledore continued. Finney shrugged. "Nico has lived for over 500 years. They think they've lived long enough. Remember, for some wizards, death is not the end but the start of a new journey. They're ready for their next adventure." Dumbledore suddenly remembered, "Oh, Finney, Nico invited us to spend a vacation at his place. You should have received a letter too." Finney rolled his eyes. "Professor, your memory is slipping. I got Nico's letter yesterday. He wrote a note, guessing you might forget." Harry watched the exchange between Finney and Dumbledore, still confused. Before Christmas, he, Ron, and Neville had even suspected Finney wanted the Philosopher's Stone for himself. Dumbledore turned to Harry for a final explanation. As Finney said, for Nico and Perino, his wife, death is like finally going to bed after a long day. For wizards, death begins another great adventure. The Philosopher's Stone isn't as wonderful as it seems. Finney is right on that. With it, you can get wealth or longevity. But, Harry, remember, these are what humans desire most, yet they often choose the most useless things. Harry lay on the bed, staring at the ceiling. He felt lost, unsure of how to respond to Finney and Dumbledore's words. Gian Galiguo stood nearby, happily humming and smiling at Harry. Finney sat munching on candy, now enjoying BB's multi-flavor beans. He decided to let Harry have his moment. After all, every bite was a new adventure. After a moment, Harry spoke up. "Sir, I've been thinking. Even though the Philosopher's Stone is gone, the mysterious man. Just call him Voldemort, Harry. Always use the right name. Fear of a name increases fear of the thing itself." "But, sir," Finney said, "there's magic in the name." Dumbledore looked at Finney, surprised. "You thought of that?" Finney shrugged. "It's not hard, Professor. I haven't experienced it, but I've read enough to guess. Harry, I suggest you avoid saying his name. If it becomes a habit, it could surprise us when he returns." Harry trembled slightly. "So, Voldemort hasn't disappeared. He'll try to come back, right?" Dumbledore closed his eyes for a moment, then replied, "Yes, Finney is right. He hasn't vanished. He's hiding somewhere, possibly looking for a new body to inhabit. But he's not alive, he's just not completely dead." Finney added, "Since he's not alive, he can't truly be killed." Dumbledore nodded. "He only thinks about escaping, ignoring Quirrell's fate. He's cruel to both enemies and followers. We all want him gone." Dumbledore reminded Harry, "You've only delayed him. You've prevented him from regaining strength, but this won't stop his return. I've seen his condition. If he waits too long, he may never recover. You survived this time by luck. Next time, you might not be so fortunate." Dumbledore's warning was clear, and he subtly opened Finney's seal so the twins could hear. It seemed he was warning them as much as Harry. Harry nodded slightly, careful not to move too much. Sir, there are things I don't understand. Finney wouldn't tell me before. Can you explain? I want to know the truth about some things. Dumbledore looked at Finney, surprised. He knew Finney rarely kept secrets unless they were significant. He hesitated, then sighed. The truth is beautiful yet frightening. It needs to be handled with care. I can't promise to answer all your questions. I'll try, but some truths must remain secret. I don't want to deceive you with lies. I believe Finney feels the same. Harry turned to Finney, hoping for the same reassurance. But Finney was busy finishing the candies, leaving the pastries untouched. He really loves candy, Harry thought. Finney turned to Dumbledore. Right, sir. Voldemort said he killed my mother because she protected me. Why did he want to kill me so badly? This was a tough question. Finney popped a jelly bean into his mouth, curious about Dumbledore's response. Dumbledore replied, Harry, that's something I can't explain now. One day, when you're older, you'll understand. Right now, you're still young, and knowing could lead to resentment or distrust toward me. Dumbledore wanted to protect Harry's view of love, fearing that losing trust in him could turn Harry into another dark wizard. After all, Harry was still a Horcrux. Finney realized something. The connections between Dumbledore and past dark wizards were complicated. If Harry became a dark wizard, it would raise questions about Dumbledore's influence. Harry, remember, Voldemort never understood love. Your mother's love for you leaves a mark, an invisible trace. It protects you. While Finney pondered, Harry asked his next question. About the invisibility cloak, who gave it to me? Sirius said it was from you. Dumbledore nodded, a glint in his eyes. It was lent to me by your father. It should go back to you. Your father used it to sneak food from the kitchen. And one more thing, Harry continued. Just ask. Quirrell said Snape. It's Professor Snape, Harry. Okay. Quirrell said Snape hates me because he hated my father. Is that true? Dumbledore paused. Didn't Sirius and Finney tell you? Your father and Snape didn't get along at first, like you and Malfoy. But your father did something Snape could never forgive. Finney laughed. Your dad married your mom, which Snape couldn't accept. But he also saved Snape's life. Dumbledore smiled. Yes, your father saved Snape. The human mind is fascinating, isn't it? He continued, Snape can't bear to owe you or your mother anything, especially after you two got together. Despite his attitude, he's been protecting you. Yes, sir. Finney said Snape would never hurt me. That's true, Harry. You can trust him. By the way, sir, I have one last question. Is it the final one? Yes, sir. How did I get the Philosopher's Stone from the mirror in the underground classroom? Dumbledore beamed. Ah, I'm glad you asked. This was one of my favorite designs. He excitedly explained, only someone who wants the stone but doesn't plan to use it can obtain it. Other people can't get the Philosopher's Stone. They can only see in the mirror what they wish for, like fishing for gold or drinking the elixir of life. My brain is really good, right? Surprising, huh? Alright, enough questions. You need to rest. Here, enjoy these candies, Dumbledore said, noticing that Finney had already taken Harry's treats. Before Finney eats them all, he added. Finney looked at Dumbledore, slightly helpless. Professor, we should go. Madame Pomfrey will come looking for us. Madame Pomfrey, the strict Hogwarts nurse, could scold Dumbledore effectively. He nodded quickly, not wanting to anger her. Okay, Harry, Finney and I will leave. Your friends should know you're awake now. You might want to see them. Harry's eyes lit up, but just then, they heard Madame Pomfrey's voice. No. You need to rest. Just 5 minutes, Harry begged. Absolutely not. Madame Pomfrey was firm. But Professor Dumbledore and Finney are here. Yes, Dumbledore is the principal, so it's different. You still need to rest. I'm resting. Look, I'm lying here, doing nothing. Please, Madame Pomfrey. Finally, she relented. Fine, 5 minutes. Watching this, Finney felt a shiver run down his spine. Okay, Harry, the professor and I will leave first. He paused, then said, you should know, you have to stay with your relatives until you're an adult. But after a week, Sirius and I will pick you up for the holidays. That should make you happy. Harry was stunned, a huge smile on his face. Really? I get to spend the holidays with you and Sirius? Dumbledore nodded, smiling back. Sirius's presence felt more like family than Harry's aunt, easing Finny's worries about his plans. As they left, Neville, Ron, and Hermione entered to see Harry. Harry. Hermione seemed ready to hug him but held back, glancing at Finny. Finny didn't notice and didn't care. Oh, Harry, we thought you were. Dumbledore was worried. Ron said loudly, causing the twins next to Harry to roll their eyes. Oh, our little brother didn't see us. It's a shame we got hurt because of him. Sad, isn't it? George, Fred. Finny and Dumbledore exchanged smiles at the banter. Professor, maybe you don't need to worry about Harry's character, Finny said meaningfully. Dumbledore shrugged, considering Finny's words. After they left, Finny planned to invite Harry to hang out with him and his friends. He wrote to Sirius about the holidays and his potential visit to Nico, knowing the Black family was different now. The next day was Hogwarts' annual dinner. After tonight, students would leave the castle on the Hogwarts Express and return home for the holidays, where magic was off limits. When Harry entered the hall, everyone was already seated, waiting for him. The banquet started late, likely to wait for Harry. The hall was decorated in Slytherin's green and silver, celebrating their Academy Cup win. Even Snape showed a hint of pride. But Finny knew Dumbledore would help Gryffindor win. As Harry walked in, everyone noticed him. After his encounter with Quirrell, the room went silent for a moment before chatter erupted, mostly about Harry. Dumbledore tapped his goblet with a spoon, quieting the crowd. Another year has passed, he said happily. Before you enjoy the feast, I have a few words. You've all grown this year, and there's a whole summer ahead to digest what you've learned. Now, let's announce the Academy Cup winners. Fourth place is Gryffindor with 312 points, third is Hufflepuff with 352 points, second is Ravenclaw with 426 points, and first is Slytherin with 472 points. Congratulations to Slytherin. Thunderous applause erupted from Slytherin, but Finny knew Dumbledore would change things. Yes, Slytherin did well, Dumbledore continued. However, some recent events need to be considered. The hall quieted again. Let's add some final points. First, Mr. Ron Weasley, Dumbledore announced. Ron turned red as Dumbledore praised him for winning a chess game and awarded Gryffindor 50 points. Cheers erupted from the Gryffindor table. Next, Mr. Neville Barrington. He bravely analyzed a dangerous situation and never left his friends. Gryffindor gets 50 points. Neville blushed, overwhelmed by the praise. Gryffindors cheered even louder. Third, Harry Potter. Dumbledore announced, and the hall fell silent again. Harry showed great courage. Gryffindor gets 60 points. The noise returned, louder than before. Slytherins were uneasy, especially Draco. Finny realized Gryffindor now had 472 points, tying with Slytherin. If Dumbledore awarded one more point, Slytherin would lose their 6-year streak. Dumbledore raised his hand, silencing the hall once more. Courage comes in many forms. I want to reward George and Fred Weasley for bravely protecting their younger siblings. Gryffindor gets 40 points. And Mr. Phineas Black, who used his keen observation to alert us about danger, earned Slytherin 30 points. Cheers erupted again. If someone stood outside, they'd think a battle was happening inside. Harry, Ron, Neville, and the twins cheered loudly, enjoying their moment. Dumbledore shouted over the noise, "We need to change the decorations." He clapped his hands, and the green ribbons turned red, silver became gold, and the Slytherin snake was replaced by a majestic Gryffindor lion. Professor McGonagall happily shook hands with Snape, who looked embarrassed. Finny knew Slytherin would face challenges next year, especially with Snape targeting Gryffindor, particularly Harry. He didn't need to think hard about what Harry would experience next semester. The party ended with Gryffindor cheering and Slytherin in silence. The next day, the young wizards left the excitement behind, eager for the upcoming holiday. They might have been happier if the professors hadn't told them they couldn't use magic during the break. Hagrid took them to Hogsmeade Station to board the Hogwarts Express to London. They laughed and chatted, watching the scenery change from wild to green countryside, passing Muggle villages along the way. The wizards enjoyed BB's multi-flavored beans, changed out of their robes into regular clothes, and left the magical world behind as they arrived at King's Cross Station. To keep the wizarding world a secret, they had to leave the platform in small groups, supervised by a skinny old guard. Want to come to my house this summer? I can send you an owl, Ron said to Harry, Neville, and Hermione. Harry nodded. Thanks. I'll be with Sirius, and I think he'd love to take me over. Finny and Draco stood behind them, listening quietly. Draco was annoyed because Finny had dragged him away from his friends, Crab and Goyle. The twins hugged Finny. Finny, come play with us during the holidays. Yeah, if you're not here, Mum will look for us again. George, Fred. They were interrupted by Mrs. Molly Weasley, who looked furious. She rushed over, grabbing one twin's ear. How could you? Your father, Ginny, and I were so worried. Ginny was terrified. Everyone knew she was upset about the twins rescuing Harry from the underground classroom. While it was brave, parents just want their kids to be safe. The twins stayed quiet, knowing their mother would scold them but then praise them for their bravery. After saying goodbye to Molly, Finny planned to talk to Harry's aunt and uncle about Harry spending the holidays at Black's house. Goodbye, Potter. Bye, Harry. The young wizards shouted their farewells. Harry felt happy about his new friendships and excited to spend time with Sirius and Finny. Suddenly, a loud voice interrupted. Finny turned to see a big man with a red face and a beard glaring at Harry. A thin woman and a chubby boy stood beside him, looking worried. Is that them, Harry? Finny asked calmly. Harry nodded. Mrs. Weasley approached. You must be Harry's family, right? The fat man, Uncle Vernon, replied, you could say that. He then turned to Harry. Come on, boy. We don't have all day. Wait. Finny stopped him. Vernon turned, surprised. What do you want? I just wanted to tell you that I'll be picking up Harry for the holidays. That's impossible. Vernon said immediately. Finny shrugged. Oh, I should mention, my brother is Harry's godfather. Vernon looked confused. Godfather? He doesn't have a godfather. Harry chimed in, I do. He was my parents' best friend. He just got out of wizard prison. Vernon looked scared. Finny smiled. It's true. My brother just got out this semester. He wants to see Harry, so we'll pick him up in a week. Finny paused, then added, oh, and we're not responsible for killing muggles. We call people like you muggles. With that, Finny waved goodbye to Harry and left, ignoring Vernon's frightened expression. Draco was happy, either because of Harry's family or because of Finny's teasing of muggles. Outside the station, Finny spotted Sirius on a shiny new motorcycle. Sirius got off excitedly, arms open for a hug. Finny. Long time no see. How's school? They hugged. Good. You know I'm strong in the academy. Slytherin's rules don't bother me. Sirius smiled. He had changed a lot since leaving Azkaban. He was now muscular and looked handsome, with his hair styled nicely. Finny pointed to Draco. This is Draco Malfoy, cousin Narcissa's son. Sirius didn't like the Malfoy family but nodded at Draco, wanting to support Finny. Lucius did some bad things, but Draco is family. We need to keep relations with them, Finny explained. He lowered his voice, the Malfoy family isn't invincible. We need a stronger voice in the community. I plan to visit them tomorrow. Just then, Finny noticed Lucius and Narcissa Malfoy approaching, dressed elegantly. Mr. Malfoy, cousin Narcissa, Finny greeted them. I was just telling Sirius I'd visit you tomorrow. Lucius looked surprised and glanced at Sirius, who wore a forced smile. Lucius had wanted to mend relations with the Black family, so he quickly responded, really? I'll prepare for your visit, Finny. Lucius didn't call him Mr. Black, indicating a close relationship. His tone was respectful, acknowledging the differences between their families. Finny smiled. No need for any fuss. It's just a simple visit between relatives. He explained that formal visits required advanced notice and gifts, while casual visits had fewer rules. Regardless, the visit would be seen as a formal interaction between the Black and Malfoy families, signaling their alliance in the wizarding world. Finny and Sirius waved goodbye to the Malfoy family and hopped on Sirius's new motorcycle, heading back to Grimmauld Place. Hey, Sirius, did you get Dumbledore's invite? He wants you to be the defense against the dark arts teacher at Hogwarts next year. Also, I'm planning to invite Harry here. We can pick him up from his uncle's house next week, Finny said. Sirius nodded, looking at his motorcycle. What do you think of my new ride? Looks great. Did you modify it yourself? Finny replied. Of course. I had another flying motorcycle before, but I gave it to Hagrid, Sirius said proudly. Finny smiled. So, Hagrid's bike was a gift from you. I figured he didn't buy it since Muggle vehicles can't be modified in the magical world. Do you like it? I'll give it to you, Sirius offered. Thanks, but I usually let Puff take me out. I can apparate if I need to. Magic is way easier than transportation. Plus, I'm not really into flying tools, Finney said, waving off the offer. Sirius pushed the motorcycle into the garage, which was more like an expanded room he had recently built. Finney frowned. Did you build this yourself or hire someone? Sirius chuckled. Don't worry. The house elves did it. I picked the decor. Finney relaxed. He didn't mind the renovations since magic made it easy and kept Muggles unaware. The house was protected by the Chi-Dan loyalty charm, so it was crucial no one else knew about it. Speaking of the charm, why did you add it? The house already has good secrecy magic, Sirius asked. Finney explained, after my parents died and Regulus disappeared, I needed to keep the Black family safe. I wanted a secure place for the heir until he turned 11 and started Hogwarts. As for Dumbledore, yes, there's a deal, but I'll benefit from it. This house is my last safe spot, especially since the mysterious man might return. Sirius sighed, realizing the situation was worse than he thought. The Order of the Phoenix needed to be active again. Their old headquarters had been destroyed, and they needed a new one. Looking at the old house, he hesitated. If he were alone, he'd offer it as the new headquarters, but Finney was the heir and had made improvements. He wouldn't want to give it up easily. Finney noticed Sirius's expression. You want to make this the Order's headquarters? Sirius smiled, thinking they were on the same page. But Finney's next words froze his excitement. Sirius, this is the Black family home. We can't just trade it. It's important to me now. If you want a place for the Order, there's a Black property in Ottery St. Catchpole. It's vacant and has basic facilities, plus good secrecy magic. Sirius perked up. Show me. Finney rolled his eyes. You haven't seen the state of that property lately. Plus, I just got back. We're visiting the Malfoys tomorrow. Sirius felt reluctant about visiting the Malfoys. He thought it was unnecessary, believing Dumbledore and the Order were enough to defeat the mysterious man. He didn't see the need for the Black family's status. Finney smiled knowingly. He understood Sirius's feelings but had his own plans for the Black family. He was determined to strengthen their position and alliances. Feeling amused, Finney said, I'm heading to my room to rest. Call me for dinner. I want to hear about how you modified that motorcycle. It was a tiring day on the train. Sirius nodded, thinking about the Malfoy visit. He really didn't want to go, but he felt he owed it to Finney. Their joint visit could help with Finney's plans. The night passed as Finney and little Cerulean Star practiced transforming Muggle items, preparing for the next day's visit. Malfoy Manor, located in Wiltshire, was the family's ancestral home, complete with beautiful gardens, fountains, and free-roaming peacocks. The luxurious interior featured elegant furniture and gilded mirrors. When Finney and Sirius arrived, Lucius was already waiting at the gate. They entered the mansion directly. The foyer was grand, with portraits lining the walls and a stone floor covered in plush carpets. The purple wallpaper glowed under a massive crystal chandelier, giving the place a luxurious, wizardly vibe. In the center of the living room stood a large dining table, used for meals and discussions, but not for dances. Instead, the meeting would take place in the ballroom on the second floor. Finney and Sirius followed Lucius to a special reception room upstairs. The first floor mostly served as decoration and was rarely used for conversations unless there were big guests. Welcome. I've asked the kitchen to prepare lunch, Lucius said, breaking the silence. Finney smiled. I'm looking forward to it. Lucius invited them to sit down. He hesitated for a moment, considering whether to call Draco over. Since both Draco and Finney were in Slytherin, they could strengthen their connection. Once seated, Finney said, All right, Mr. Malfoy, let's get to the point. We have time to catch up later. Just call me Lucius, he replied. Of course, Lucius. You know why I'm here, right? Lucius paused, then said, There are speculations about what happened on the Hogwarts Express last September. Finney leaned back, relaxed. Yes, that incident is part of the reason for my visit. Let's discuss it. Lucius stopped smiling and leaned forward, signaling Finney to continue. I assume Draco shared the details with you? Finney asked. Yes, I know what the Parkinson family was up to, Lucius replied. The Malfoy family has a strong heritage. I believe the mysterious man recruited you because of that. Lucius didn't want to discuss being a Death Eater, but Feeney was not someone to shy away from it. Lucius nodded, acknowledging the point. Feeney continued, your connection with the Parkinsons comes from this identity. They may have some strength, but they can't compare to the Malfoys. Lucius agreed. Parkinson has often suggested marrying his daughter to Draco, and he's mentioned it several times. But you never agreed, right? Feeney asked. Correct. The Parkinson family is strong, but their background is lacking, Lucius said. Lucius made it clear that the Parkinsons weren't worthy of the Malfoy name. They were a newer pureblood family without enough history or status. This explained why Draco ended up with Astoria Greengrass instead of Pansy Parkinson. The Greengrass family, while not as strong, had a better background and were allies of the old families. Feeney reflected on surprising couples in the original story, like Ron and Hermione. Hermione, a Muggle-born, aimed to be Minister of Magic. Marrying into a pureblood family like the Weasleys would help her ambitions. The Weasley family welcomed Hermione, knowing her friendship with Ron and Harry was strong. If Hermione didn't choose Ron, she might have gone for Harry. In the end, it worked out, Hermione with Ron, and Harry with Ginny. Their connections deepened after they all faced the wizarding world's darkness. Feeney shook his head, returning to the conversation. Your hesitation caused the Parkinson family to become anxious. If I hadn't intervened, the Malfoys might have lost their chance to return to the old ways. Lucius nodded, realizing Draco's actions could have pushed them away from the pureblood community. Thank you for your help, Feeney. If you hadn't acted, things could have gotten worse, Lucius said, raising his teacup. Feeney waved his hand. But I'm here for more than just this issue. Lucius raised an eyebrow, sensing there was more to discuss. I hope the Malfoy family will openly support the Black family and join our side, Feeney said. Lucius was surprised. He thought Feeney wanted assets or power, not a commitment that could limit their future. Of course, you understand the consequences of such a statement, Feeney added. Black's allies will be Malfoy's allies, and Black's enemies will be Malfoy's enemies, Lucius said, finishing Feeney's thought. Lucius leaned back, pondering. But why should I do this? Your actions with Harry Potter show the Black family's commitment to Malfoy. If I stay neutral, we gain allies without making enemies. Feeney smiled. But you don't have a choice. If the mysterious man returns, the Malfoy family will be his servant, and he won't treat you well. You know well that you sold much of your family's property to avoid Azkaban. The current Malfoy family won't satisfy him. While he won't attack you directly, he could strip you of your wand or suppress your family, Feeney warned. Your other option is to join us and break away from him. With Blake and Selwyn backing you, you wouldn't have to worry about the mysterious man anymore. On the surface, it seems like two choices, but to restore the Malfoy family's glory, you need to choose me. That's the only way to regain your status. Lucius fell silent, knowing Feeney spoke the truth but still feeling anxious. He understood the dangers within pureblood politics. Can I think it over? He asked quietly. Feeney nodded. Of course. This choice is yours. I'm offering you a way to survive because Narcissa is part of the Malfoy family. She was once a Black. Lucius sighed, confused by Feeney's calmness. Why didn't he seem concerned about Malfoy's decision? It wasn't arrogance. Many pureblood wizards, including Lucius, underestimated the Black family's power. Feeney had hidden strengths, especially in the Muggle world. Since last December, the landscape had changed, giving him greater influence. The Black family controlled a small European country formed after a recent collapse. They took advantage of the situation, converting Muggle currency into magical galleons. Feeney invested in various industries, confident that even if only a few succeeded, he'd come out ahead. Now, he didn't worry about the Malfoy family's choice. He just wanted them as allies when needed. He would also work to bring them into the fold of the old families. Lucius was deep in thought. He struggled to understand Feeney's purpose and the future ahead. He worried about the mysterious man's return and what it would mean for the Malfoy family. Lucius didn't just want Malfoy to rejoin the Oath family, he aimed for a higher position, similar to the Black family's current status. But he also realized that Feeney's offer wasn't completely trustworthy. If the Malfoy family joined the Black family, it might scare off the mysterious man. But there was a risk. If the mysterious man no longer cared about the old families, the Malfoys could face dire consequences. No leader would want to lose their followers. Lucius thought, if I choose Black, the mysterious man will still come after us. After a long pause, he finally voiced this concern. Feeney, if I choose Black, the mysterious man will inevitably target Malfoy. Finney nodded, responding honestly. Yes, no matter what you decide, after claiming you were under the Imperious curse and harmed your colleagues, you have no choice. The mysterious man will come for your family. Lucius crossed his legs and playfully asked, if the outcome is the same, why should I choose? Finney understood Lucius was looking for benefits. While Lucius had no choice, choosing Black might offer a glimmer of hope, if Black was willing to fight against the mysterious man. Lucius needed a promise from Finney. He wanted assurance that Black would protect Malfoy if the mysterious man attacked. However, this promise was worth more than what Malfoy could offer in return, leaving Finney conflicted. Finney considered whether Malfoy was worth such a promise. On one hand, Malfoy's financial strength could benefit Black. On the other hand, Malfoy could only help if Black assisted in bringing them back to the old ways. Ultimately, Finney took a deep breath and said, Lucius, I promise that if Malfoy aligns with Black, we will work to restore your status in the Oath family. And when the mysterious man attacks, we will do our best to protect Malfoy. This promise was intriguing. If Malfoy joined Black, Finney would seek to restore their status, but he didn't guarantee success. Protecting Draco would also ensure Malfoy's survival. Lucius, astute as always, sensed the underlying meaning in Finney's words. He realized that Finney wanted to keep his hands free while Lucius sought safety for his family. For Lucius, the priority was simple, he wanted assurance that Draco would be safe when the mysterious man returned. Lucius replied, but I hope you keep your word. With that, they shook hands and signed a magical contract. The Malfoy family would now serve the Black family. This alliance aimed to scare off the mysterious man and protect Draco during dangerous times. Good, the contract is set, Finney said. Now, let me handle the Malfoy matters. Lucius was surprised by this. He understood that Finney was referring to the diary, but was it really a sign of surrender? It's not a surrender, but it's important. You know what it is, so its destruction is necessary, Finney explained. Lucius nodded, realizing Finney had more plans than he let on. I once received a diary from him, and I suspected it was a Horcrux. Now, I can finally breathe easy handing it over. He led Finney to his study, filled with bookshelves and a desk covered in parchment and writing tools. Most of the books were common, with a few rare ones, all approved by the Ministry of Magic. He explained, I sold off dark magic books to help the family's finances. They're of little use now. Finney sighed, aware of the decline in pureblood families and magic itself. As time passed, powerful spells had faded, and many families were on the brink of extinction. Lucius opened a hidden compartment in the bookshelf and handed over the diary, the only item inside. If you hadn't come, I would have sold it soon. The ministry plans another search of pureblood families. Finney examined the diary, finding it blank. He smiled, having sensed its dark aura earlier. Leave it to me, and don't worry about it anymore, he said, placing it on the desk. Then, to Lucius's shock, he pulled out a dagger made from basilisk teeth. The basilisk's venom could destroy Horcruxes. Finney stabbed the diary, and a horrifying scream erupted from it. Ink sprayed out, flowing onto the desk and floor. As the venom burned through the diary, black smoke began to rise. Even after the noise faded, the smoke lingered, slowly turning white. Finally, the diary became solid and could no longer be opened. Finney was sure the Horcrux was destroyed. He had his reasons for doing it now. With the Horcrux gone, Slytherin's Chamber of Secrets would remain hidden, allowing Baska to stay at Hogwarts while Finney made his plans. Lucius watched in shock as Finney worked. But neither of them knew that, at the same time, a furious voice echoed from an old house in Little Hangleton. No. Phineas Black. The voice was filled with anger. Find him and kill him. Following the command, dark mist poured out of the house, spreading in all directions. After destroying the diary, Finney turned to Lucius with a smile. Great. Now Malfoy's affairs belong to Black. Before, Malfoy just needed to pledge allegiance to us, and we wouldn't have to worry about the mysterious man. But the power of the council has weakened lately. Still, Malfoy joining the Oath family will scare the mysterious man. Next, we need to focus on getting Malfoy back in. However, Lucius, becoming a pledge family in your generation is unlikely. We're focusing on Draco. I think you'll agree with that. Lucius nodded. Joining the Oath family was tough. It required a legendary wizard and talented members. Draco would need to become a great wizard, and only then could the Black and Malfoy families succeed together. I understand. I'll talk to Draco about this. He won't let me down. Finney agreed. Draco is talented but enjoys playing around. I think he'll change once he knows. Sirius sat quietly, watching his brother and Lucius converse, feeling out of place. He sipped coffee, though he preferred red wine. After discussing Malfoy's future and plans to help Black, they realized they had lost track of time. Narcissa reminded them it was time to eat. Oops, I forgot, Lucius said with a smile. Are you tired? Let's eat. Before Finny could respond, Sirius jumped in, eager to eat, nearly dozing off. They moved to the dining room, where Lucius insisted Finny take the main seat, but Finny declined. This was the Malfoy family, after all. Draco was puzzled by his father's enthusiasm towards Finny. After dinner, Finny said his goodbyes and left with Sirius. Thanks for your hard work, Finny smiled at Sirius, knowing he wasn't thrilled with the situation. Sirius was about to say it was fine when Finny continued, but tomorrow, you'll join me in visiting another family. What? Sirius exclaimed, quickly coughing to hide his surprise. Which family? Finny smiled, pretending not to notice. The Greengrass family. But tomorrow, Sirius, you need to be more formal. This is a proper visit. Sirius's forced smile faded. He knew Finny had already written to the Greengrass family about visiting during the holiday. The Greengrass family, though weaker, was still a sworn family protected by the council. They couldn't act against Finny, as he was aware of their neutral stance. Finny aimed to gain their support after the incident on the train. The Greengrass family, though small, held significant influence in the council. Sirius sighed, is the gift ready? Finny nodded with a smile. Of course, it's a gift they can't refuse. Sirius frowned, curious about the gift. He thought wine would be appropriate, especially since the Black family had many fine vintages. Unlike the Malfoys, the Greengrass family sent a carriage to pick them up at the Leaky Cauldron. This was a rule among sworn families to ensure confidentiality. The Floo network was controlled by the Ministry of Magic, which could expose their location. It was safer for the visiting family to send transportation. When they arrived, they stepped out of a carriage to find a Gothic-style building. Though it looked like a mini-castle, it was covered in ivy, giving it an abandoned feel. But Finny knew it was protected by Devil's Snare disguised as vines. At the entrance, a woman in a robe approached them. You must be Mr. Phineas Black and Mr. Sirius Black. Yes, ma'am. You must be Mrs. Greengrass, Finny replied. Please, come in. It's better to talk in a comfortable setting. Finny nodded. Of course, it's not gentlemanly to keep a lovely lady standing in the sun. Mrs. Greengrass chuckled. You're quite the charmer, Mr. Black. I have 2 daughters, how can I be considered beautiful? In my eyes, Mrs. Greengrass, you are at a wonderful age. As they joked, Mrs. Greengrass led them to the living room. Phoebus is in the study. Please wait a moment. Phoebus Greengrass was the patriarch, but due to a blood curse, few family members lived past 200 years. Finny smiled and handed Mrs. Greengrass a potion. This is a small gift. She looked at the potion skeptically. Sending potions during visits was unusual among pureblood families. Finny explained, this potion can help curb the blood curse. Sirius realized how valuable this gift was, especially for the Greengrass family. When Mrs. Greengrass heard this, her face lit up with surprise. She opened her mouth wide, forgetting to close it or even take the potion. After a moment, she snapped back to reality. Ah, I'm sorry, Mr. Black. This needs to be decided by my husband, Phoebus. Please wait a moment. Finny waved his hand. It's fine. Ignoring pureblood etiquette, Mrs. Greengrass hurried out, clearly shocked. Finny understood her reaction, the Greengrass family was struggling due to a blood curse. Daphne, the eldest daughter, seemed unaffected by the curse, while Astoria, the youngest, suffered greatly from it. Many believed Astoria had 2 curses, which could lead to her not living past 20. Because of this, the Greengrasses were hesitant to have more children, fearing the same fate for a new child. Without an heir, the family name was at risk. If Finny's potion worked, it could save Astoria and allow the Greengrass family to have an heir again. Soon, Phoebus, the family patriarch, rushed in, looking anxious. He took Sirius's hand without hesitation. Mr. Black, is the potion you mentioned really effective? How do you use it? Are there any side effects? Sirius, Mrs. Greengrass, and Finny felt a bit awkward. Thankfully, Mrs. Greengrass reminded Phoebus, Phobos, it was Mr. Black who provided the potion. Phoebus blushed in embarrassment. Finny smiled. It's all right, Mr. Greengrass. My age often leads to misunderstandings, so no need to feel bad. Phoebus awkwardly replied, I apologize, Mr. Black. Can you answer my questions? Just call me Feeny. I can assure you, the potion is effective. It may not work as dramatically as you hope, but it has no side effects. Feeny explained that the potion was a vitality booster, modified from the elixir of life, without the need for magic stones or dependency issues. While it could restore vitality, it wouldn't repair damaged bodies. The elixir granted immortality by converting soul power to maintain life, but Feeny's potion wouldn't stop aging. It would help Astoria feel better, but wouldn't cure the curse. He added, this potion can't completely break the curse. It treats symptoms but not the root cause. I'm still a young wizard and can't do that yet. Phoebus quickly replied, as long as it helps, can we give it to Astoria? Feeny nodded. Yes, it will ease her discomfort. She won't need the phoenix flames for pain relief. But the materials are precious, so it will be expensive. Phoebus pondered this. What are the ingredients? This question broke the magical world's rules. Potion formulas are usually confidential. But Phoebus was desperate for his daughter's sake. Feeny sighed. I wish I could share, but the formula ties back to Nico Flammel's elixir of life. Phoebus realized Feeny must have signed a magical contract and stopped pressing for details. Instead, he suggested, why don't we head to the dining room? I hear Feeny likes Far Eastern cuisine. I had a house elf learn some recipes. We also have French dishes you enjoy, Mr. Black. Feeny smiled and agreed. If they couldn't follow social etiquette, they could bond over food. At dinner, Daphne clearly showed her dislike for Feeny. It was natural for a girl her age to express such feelings, especially since she was spoiled. Astoria, on the other hand, welcomed Feeny. Interestingly, despite feeling embarrassed by him at the start of school, she always chose to sit next to him at Hogwarts. Father, are you serious? Daphne exclaimed at the table when Phoebus mentioned Feeny's potion. Before Phoebus could respond, she glared at Feeny. Is this true? If you're lying. Many at the table shifted uncomfortably. Phoebus looked grim, Astoria felt worried, and Mrs. Greengrass scolded Daphne. But Feeny remained unfazed, smiling. Let's not discuss whether it's necessary. Even if I were lying, what could you do, Miss Greengrass? His tone echoed the teasing he gave her on the train, making Daphne furious but aware of the power dynamic between their families. Phoebus quickly intervened, Feeny, please don't mind. Our daughter hasn't been raised well. Feeny waved him off, still smiling. No need to apologize, Mr. Greengrass. I don't mind her attitude, but you should be cautious. Though he spoke lightly, his tone sent a chill through the room. By the way, Mr. Greengrass, you might not know what happened on the Hogwarts Express this semester. Feeny recounted how Daphne had tried to frame Malfoy, and as he spoke, Phoebus's expression darkened. Daphne grew timid, trembling slightly. Daphne Greengrass. Phoebus called her full name, making her even more frightened. She understood the seriousness of her actions and had kept it from her parents to avoid punishment. Feeny, amused by Phoebus's anger, said, Mr. Greengrass, the matter was handled well, and it didn't greatly impact your family. I'm just letting you know to pay attention in the future. Phoebus gave Feeny a knowing look. He realized that Feeny's warning highlighted the favor the Greengrass family owed the Black family. With the potion involved, it was more than just one favor. The Greengrass family could no longer remain neutral at the Oath family meeting. If the Blacks were in trouble, the Greengrasses would likely have to support them, risking their own safety. Phoebus glared at Daphne, regretting their indulgence in her behavior. Thank you, Feeny. Without you, the Greengrass family might not exist today. If the Black family ever needs anything, please ask. We may be weak, but we can still help in the council. Phoebus, a new character, would appear more often in the future, though not as prominently as Dumbledore or Harry. Phoebus knew he didn't have the right to choose differently. Instead of waiting for Feeny to speak up, he decided to offer his support first. It would show he knew how to repay kindness. Feeny understood Phoebus's intentions. But it didn't matter much. His goal was accomplished. The Greengrass family's support was like having several Malfoy families behind him. Feeny smiled and extended his hand to Phoebus. If it's necessary, I won't hold back, Phoebus. With that, Feeny began calling him by his first name. This signified their growing closeness and the shift in their relationship. Now that the Greengrass family was aligned with the Blacks, Feeny felt it was appropriate to drop the formal title. If the Greengrasses hadn't joined him, he might have called Phoebus uncle, showing the connection between their families. But now, Phoebus was Feeney's subordinate. Phoebus didn't mind the change. He knew it was expected if he wanted to strengthen ties with the Black family. He glanced at his daughter, wondering if this was the right choice. As Finney and Phoebus chatted, Daphne shot resentful glances, while Sirius joked with Mrs. Greengrass. Soon, the meal ended. Finney wiped his mouth and said to Phoebus. Okay, Phoebus, check Astoria's condition before using the potion. I made it based on other blood curses and research. It should work, but the effects might be subtle. He paused. It's just a temporary fix. If I can learn more about the blood curse, I might find a real cure. Phoebus nodded, placing his utensils down. That makes sense. I'll prepare a quiet room. Do you need any special equipment? Feeney shook his head. A quiet room and potion tools will do. I have common herbs. If possible, please have some owls ready. I may need to contact Professor Dumbledore or Mr. N. Flammel. Phoebus's eyes lit up. He knew those two were the best options for solving the blood curse. Dumbledore's Phoenix could help, and Nico had created the elixir of life. Plus, they weren't bound by the Council's restrictions. Phoebus understood that while the Council could help, it would come at a cost they weren't willing to pay. The Greengrass family had remained neutral for years, avoiding unnecessary involvement in Oath family meetings. After a moment, Phoebus stood and told Finney. The room is ready. We can go. In Pureblood etiquette, house elves weren't allowed in front of guests. Feeney nodded and looked at Astoria. Miss Astoria, we need your help. Astoria understood. With the family's blood curse, even her father was lucky not to be affected. Her uncle had died from it. In the prepared room, Feeney turned to Phoebus. I've always wondered, according to the Council's records, the blood curse should affect all family members. Why does it seem to appear only in some descendants? Phoebus sighed. This was a change made by our ancestors to ensure the family's survival. It's a form of black magic. Feeney was surprised. Can you tell me more? Any details about the blood curse could help my research. Phoebus explained the dark history of the Greengrass family. Long ago, every member carried the curse, and none lived past 40. This was serious for pureblood families, as their strength relied on heritage, including legendary wizards. To ensure the family's legacy, the patriarch placed another curse within their bloodline. This led to a cruel outcome. The blood curse would transfer to the youngest sibling, accumulating with each older sibling's curse. For example, if a Greengrass had 3 older brothers, the youngest would inherit 4 curses, drastically shortening their lifespan. Astoria, being the youngest, faced this fate, while Daphne could live normally. Phoebus shared that the ancestors had aimed for the curse to transfer to the youngest child, leading to some dying at birth, sparing others. But this sacrifice was seen as evil black magic. Sadly, the outcome was different. The ancestors also decreed that each family member must have at least 2 children to ensure a healthy heir. Astoria was born a victim of this system, yet she remained kind and sensible, which only deepened her parents' heartache. Phoebus spoke freely, knowing Astoria already understood the situation. Feeney wanted to comfort Astoria, but words felt inadequate. Astoria smiled at him. It's okay, Senior Black. I feel good now. Helping my sister and family feels great. Feeney admired her spirit. Despite being a victim, she accepted her role and encouraged others. I promise to find a way to break the curse, he said. Astoria smiled but remained silent, gazing out the window. In her eyes, Feeney sensed a flicker of hope. Yet, after years of disappointment, she might have closed her heart to it. He noticed her longing for life and freedom. If Astoria didn't have the curse, her future would be bright. She'd graduate, find love, start a family, and explore the world. But with the curse, she only had 3 years left to live fully. After graduating, she might only return to this cold castle, waiting for her end. Astoria likely understood her fate, fueling her desire for life while facing constant disappointment. Feeney turned to Phoebus. Can Astoria and I have some time alone? I'm ready to start my research. Phoebus nodded. Of course. As he left, Phoebus paused at the door. Mr. Phineas Black. Yes, Phoebus. If you can truly break this curse, the Greengrass family will do whatever it takes to support you, even if it means sacrificing my life. Feeney nodded. I'll do my best. He glanced at Astoria, still looking out the window. I can't let such a bright life pass by without trying to help. That's not the life I want as a wizard. Phoebus left, closing the door solemnly, standing guard at the last hope. He had tested Feeney's potion and knew it worked, but it only treated symptoms, not the root cause. Yet, he understood what Feeney represented for Astoria: hope, hope for life. For everyone, hope is precious. As long as hope exists, everything is still possible. As Phoebus left the room, Finney turned to Astoria, wanting to say something. But Astoria spoke first. Do you need my blood? Or are you going to experiment on me? It's fine. Just do it. I won't interfere. Feeney's heart raced. He knew that lifting the curse would cause a strong reaction. Success was one thing, but failure could hurt her. Testing magic directly on her was risky, and Astoria's dull tone showed how many times she had faced this before. It was heartbreaking. I understand, Feeney said after a moment. But you need to sleep now. Astoria paused, then nodded. She got up, walked to the bed, and lay down, closing her eyes. Feeney waved his wand, and as the magic took effect, Astoria's breathing calmed, and she fell into a deep sleep. While Astoria dreamed peacefully, Finney was troubled. He had some guesses about the Greengrass blood curse but didn't fully understand it. Wanting to solve it so easily felt naive. He knew the curse was blood-related, so he needed answers from blood itself. Puff, he called. Puff appeared, ready to help. I need Muggle chemistry and medical equipment. Go find Lisa, Finney instructed, writing down his needs on a note. Tell her it's urgent and to prepare it right away. Puff took the note and vanished. Finney then pulled out a small suitcase from his robe pocket. He waved his wand, and it expanded to a normal size, revealing test tubes and potions inside. Finney took an empty test tube and approached sleeping Astoria. He waved his wand, creating a small cut on her wrist. Blood flowed out, filling the test tube and a beaker on the table. Wizards could do many things with magic, but most were unaware of Muggle science. Finney believed that science and magic could lead to the same goal. With knowledge from his past life, he knew Muggle chemistry was essential. Since World War II, chemistry and physics had advanced to the point of world destruction, while magic hadn't. Finney began testing the blood to understand the curse. He recalled a famous blood curse that affected Dumbledore's friend, causing them to transform into an animal. Few knew of this, but Finney knew it was Nagini, who was later turned into a snake and left England. The connection between blood curses and the soul was strong. The potions Finney had, including the one given to Phoebus, had little effect. Even the potion he gave Phoebus would worsen the curse, making Astoria feel worse. Finney had a potion made from unicorn blood and phoenix blood, which could suppress the curse but not eliminate it. This potion is better than phoenix flames, he murmured. It purifies black magic, but I still need to consider how to lift the curse. Purification was tough. Breaking the curse required purification magic, and Astoria's curse proved how difficult it was to achieve. Just then, Puff returned with the equipment and a letter from Nico. Hey, Finney. I got your reply and know you're busy. Albus is here, enjoying good food, but don't worry, I've saved some for you. Nico continued, I heard you're looking into the Greengrass blood curse. It's different from ordinary curses. It harms not just the body but also the soul. As the curse worsens, the wizard's soul weakens too. We found that while transferring the soul doesn't work, stripping the blood might, though it would kill the wizard. Albus and I think transfiguration could help break the curse. If you transform the wizard into an object without blood, you can temporarily separate the curse. But most objects can't withstand the energy released when exposed to the curse, and the transformation can't last long enough to break it. That plan was abandoned, but I thought it might help you. Souls involved? This made things complicated. Finney felt a headache coming on. Magic involving the soul was tricky territory for legendary wizards. Finney could only use magic within his limits. The only soul-related magic he had was Gryffindor's soul-giving spell and his own improved version. He wondered if he could use soul-manipulating magic on Astoria. But he hesitated, worried about the consequences. He didn't want to risk losing Astoria's identity. But giving up wasn't an option. Finney decided to explore Muggle science instead. He began making blood slides, using microscopes to analyze Astoria's blood for clues about the curse. Eventually, he found something unusual. Astoria's blood contained a specific type of cell with incredible strength. Finney believed these cells were key to understanding the curse, but how to resolve it? He thought of a powerful spell, Fierce Fire, which could burn away anything, including magic. But it could also harm Astoria. He needed the Phoenix Flame, which could heal her. This plan was risky but seemed promising. However, he needed help, someone knowledgeable about both fierce fire and phoenix flames. The perfect person was Albus Dumbledore, the headmaster of Hogwarts. With that in mind, Feeney stepped out and found Phoebus, who was still waiting outside. He shared his thoughts and concerns, aware that this method was dangerous. If it failed, Astoria could die, so he needed Phoebus's input and permission to involve Dumbledore. After hearing Feeney's thoughts, Phoebus fell deep in thought. Astoria was his youngest and beloved daughter. How could he not feel conflicted? But he quickly made up his mind. He needed to act. If nothing changed, Astoria would only live until 20, and the curse would only make her weaker. Taking a risk might lead to success, and everyone would be happy. Even failure could spare her some suffering. With clarity, Phoebus wrote separate letters to Dumbledore and Feeney. Dumbledore was at Nico's manor, so only Feeney, who knew the location, could deliver the letter. Nico's manor was protected by a curse, known only to Dumbledore and Feeney. Eager to help Astoria, Feeney said goodbye to Sirius and asked Puff to take him to the England-France border. House elves couldn't apparate across borders in one go, but they could manage long distances without rest. After 3 stops, Feeney arrived in Nicholas, France, a secluded town. Once Puff was invisible, Feeney approached Nico's home. Inside, Nico and Dumbledore were enjoying tea and sweets. Both were fond of sweets, which made Feeney smile. After greeting them, Feeney shared his thoughts about Astoria's curse. "That's a great idea with potential," Nico praised. "It seems you understand magic well. If age hadn't held you back, you'd be a great wizard by now," he added. Feeney asked, "Do you think this idea can work?" Dumbledore nodded, saying, "I've had similar thoughts. A student at Hogwarts tried something like this but failed due to lack of control over the flames." Feeney replied confidently, "I'm sure of my control. You, Professor, know the most about phoenix flames. I came to invite you to help lift Astoria's curse." Dumbledore hesitated, considering the risks. This idea was still a hypothesis, untested and dangerous. Plus, Nico's health was fragile after destroying the Philosopher's Stone. Dumbledore didn't want to part with his old friend. Nico noticed Dumbledore's hesitation and smiled. "I'm interested in Feeney's ideas. You wouldn't refuse an old man watching your experiments, right?" Feeney quickly agreed, "Of course. Your presence would give me confidence." Dumbledore then decided to go with Feeney to Greengrass Manor, guided by Phoebus, who had already shared the location. "Thank you for coming, Professor Dumbledore," Phoebus said, waiting at the manor entrance. He noticed Nico but didn't recognize him. Quickly realizing Nico must be the guest, he extended his hand, but as he shook it, he accidentally broke Nico's bone. "Oh!" Nico yelped, and Phoebus quickly let go. "Are you okay?" Phoebus asked, worried. Dumbledore smiled and used healing magic on Nico. "This is Nico Flamel," Feeney explained. "His body is fragile because of the elixir of life." Phoebus was stunned. Dumbledore was well known, but Nico was legendary, having lived for 500 years. Feeney, Dumbledore, and Nico exchanged smiles, amused by Phoebus's reaction. "Let's go in," Feeney said. "Astoria is asleep, and we need to wake her and explain the preparations." Dumbledore's smile faded. He knew that for Feeney's plan to work, Astoria needed to be aware of the risks. They entered the room where Astoria slept. Feeney cast a spell to wake her. "Is it over? Can we do nothing?" Astoria asked calmly, catching everyone off guard. Feeney shook his head. "I have ideas. If all goes well, you and your family won't be affected by the curse anymore." Astoria's eyes lit up. "Really?" Noticing Dumbledore, Nico, and her father, she stood up and greeted them. "Professor Dumbledore, Father, and this gentleman, hello." Dumbledore nodded. "We believe we can solve the curse, but we need your input." Astoria eagerly replied, "I have no objections. Just do what you need." Feeney said, "No, we need your cooperation." Dumbledore added, "And it will involve pain you've never felt before." Astoria looked confused at her father, who nodded. She turned to Feeney, waiting for more. Feeney took a deep breath. "I discovered the blood curse in your body is deeply rooted. To lift it, we must destroy and rebuild your body. This will separate the curse from your blood." Astoria's face showed fear. "Will it hurt?" Feeney nodded. "Yes, we'll use a powerful spell to destroy your body, and the only way to restore it is with phoenix flames." Dumbledore sighed. "You felt the phoenix flames before. This process will be much more intense. You must maintain your consciousness throughout." Astoria was stunned. So, I'll feel everything. Yes, Dumbledore confirmed. Astoria thought for a moment and then said firmly, okay, I understand. Let's do it. Her tone, prepared for the worst, moved Finney. He turned to Phoebus. We need a strong room to withstand powerful magic. Phoebus replied, I don't have such a room, but there's one in the castle for practicing war magic. Finney nodded. Phoebus led them to the basement, a bright round room with dark green walls and large paintings. This is our practice room, but I need to show you something else. He approached a portrait and said, Grandpa, I need to use the shelter. The figure in the portrait stepped aside, revealing a door. Phoebus opened it, and stairs descended from the portrait. Let's go, Phoebus said, leading everyone down the stairs through the portrait door into a room that looked just like the last one. This is our family's refuge. When our enemy, the Dalai Lama, comes, we can activate the magic circle inside. This place can withstand most attacks, he explained. According to family records, this structure is identical to the Department of Mysteries at the Ministry of Magic. You can safely use any magic here without worry. Dumbledore nodded, glancing at Astoria. So, Miss Greengrass, are you ready? Astoria took a deep breath, her voice trembling slightly. Ready, Professor. Very well, then, Fox. Dumbledore called. A ball of flame appeared, transforming into a phoenix that landed on his shoulder, nuzzling him affectionately. Dumbledore spoke softly to the phoenix, and it responded with a beautiful song, lifting everyone's spirits. Feeny turned to Phoebus. I suggest you step out now. The next part won't be easy to watch. Phoebus hesitated, knowing he might struggle to see his daughter in pain, but he left the room. Astoria, Feeny said, you might want to prepare some clothes so you don't end up naked after this. Astoria looked surprised. Feeny shrugged. We'll use fierce fire to burn out the curse. Everything will be destroyed, including your clothes. If you have anything precious, take it off now. Astoria paused, then took a deep breath and unzipped her back. As she did, her pale skin was exposed, catching the attention of Finney, Dumbledore, and Nico. Dumbledore, who was indifferent to women due to his past with Grindelwald, and Nico, who had lived for 500 years, both remained unfazed. But Finney, at just 14, felt a rush of confusion. He shook his head, trying to focus. He needed to concentrate on controlling the flames. Are you ready? He asked again, his voice colder this time. Astoria nodded, shy and nervous. Fierce fire. A large ball of flames shot from Finney's wand toward Astoria. The fierce fire was powerful, burning everything in its path. Finney had learned to cast spells silently, but he recited this one to maintain control. The flames engulfed Astoria, and he called out, Professor. Dumbledore quickly waved his wand, sending a large orange flame from the phoenix to merge with the fierce fire, igniting Astoria and restoring her burned body. Ah! Astoria screamed, her voice trembling and gradually fading. The fierce fire burned through her skin and muscles, while the phoenix flames healed her, creating an excruciating cycle of pain. Astoria could only whimper as her vocal cords burned away. Finney watched in horror as her beautiful skin turned to bone, but the phoenix flames kept her alive. They needed to completely destroy her body to lift the curse. The process repeated, burning, healing, burning again, until the curse was gone. As time passed, Finney sweated, focused on controlling the flames. Nico monitored Astoria's condition, while even Dumbledore looked pale from the strain. Hang in there. Nico urged. It'll be over soon. Finney tightened his grip on his wand, biting his tongue to stay alert. He realized how close he had come to losing control of the flames. Following Nico's command, Finney slowly extinguished the fierce fire, allowing the phoenix flames to cover Astoria completely. As the orange flames died down, Astoria lay weak and naked on the ground, breathing heavily. Did we succeed? Finney asked, looking at Dumbledore and Nico. Dumbledore smiled faintly, gesturing to Nico, who knelt beside Astoria to examine her. If Astoria hadn't just endured such pain, she might have felt uncomfortable being naked in front of Nico. After a moment, Nico stood up with a smile. We did it. Finney, you changed history and found a way to cure the blood curse. This method can help with any curse related to the body. Dumbledore added, with your achievements, Finney, you could earn a first-class Merlin medal or even join the Wisengamot. Finney relaxed on the ground, smiling. I'm more interested in saving lives than medals. Dumbledore looked at Finney with admiration, his earlier skepticism gone. While they recovered, Astoria, having been restored, lay on the ground, unable to move. Finney sighed and waved his wand. Her clothes flew to her side, and she put them on. Once everything was settled, Feeny levitated Astoria's body, and they walked out of the secret room together. "How about it?" Phoebus asked, eager as he saw people emerging from the room where his daughter screamed. Feeny smiled. "Astoria's body has regrown, but she won't be able to control it for a while. She'll need help, like a newborn learning to walk." He gently floated Astoria into Mrs. Greengrass's arms. Phoebus looked at Finny and the others, his eyes bright. "So, the curse is lifted, right?" Dumbledore nodded, smiling. "Yes, it is. Soon, you might hear that Feeny is a candidate for Wizengamot membership." Nico chimed in, "Feeny's discovery is valuable and could change many lives. Albus and I can help him apply." Phoebus's eyes lit up. The Greengrass family had allied with the Black family. If Feeny succeeded, so would they. "That's great. I'll help prove Feeny's experiment worked." Feeny shook his head. "Phoebus, no need to prove anything. Besides, if you testify, Astoria will be examined. I don't trust those researchers to ensure her safety." Dumbledore agreed. "Feeny is right. Some researchers have little regard for life. If they examined Miss Greengrass, our efforts would be wasted." Phoebus fell silent, realizing the truth in their words. The exhaustion from Astoria's treatment lingered, so the three stayed at Greengrass Manor for the night before saying goodbye. Dumbledore and Nico returned to Nicholas, while Feeny headed to London to meet Lisa. He had gained support from the Malfoy family, which would help the Black family significantly. Lisa usually assisted him with magical and muggle matters, so he needed to discuss the Malfoy connection with her. Feeny was also surprised by the Greengrass family's backing. Their support could provide vital resources from the Presbyterian Council, which controlled knowledge about becoming a god, his ultimate goal. He wanted to expand his reputation in the wizarding world. Lifting the Greengrass blood curse was a great story, especially with Dumbledore's endorsement. He planned to ask Lisa to spread the word through underground channels. Fanquai Alley was bustling, but not with noise, just people. Unlike Diagon Alley, wizards here kept quiet, hiding their identities while engaging in shady dealings. Children had no safe space, any young wizard could be targeted by dark wizards. To avoid trouble, Feeny operated directly to Silver Moon Potion Store's door. Just as he was about to enter, he suddenly crouched and turned left. A silver light shot past, barely missing him. Feeny quickly drew his wand and faced the source of the attack, a wizard in black robes, surrounded by others in similar attire. They were clearly organized. This attack was planned. The unwritten rule in the alley was to avoid fighting in front of potion stores, which were vital for dark wizards. The attacker disregarded this, showing they meant business. Feeny's vigilance heightened. The wizard didn't attack, he just watched, as if waiting for something. Suddenly, more wizards in black robes surrounded the potion store, their intentions clear, they were after Feeny. The potion shop door swung open. "Whoever wants their lives, surround my store," Lisa shouted as she stepped out. In Fanquai Alley, being fierce was essential for survival. As a werewolf, Lisa excelled in this. "Master. When did you come? And what's happening?" she asked, noticing the growing crowd. Realizing the danger, she yelled, "Master, go. Leave this to us." The werewolf wizards in the potion shop gathered around Feeny, ready for battle. "Rick, take the young master away," Lisa commanded a nearby werewolf. Rick reached for Feeny's hand to apparate, but nothing happened. "Sister, there's a magic ban on apparition here." Lisa's heart sank. "Avada Kedavra," she shouted, sending a green light toward the attacking wizard, killing him instantly. She acted first, knowing that taking the initiative was crucial. The surrounding werewolves followed her lead, casting spells in unison. However, the opposing wizards fought chaotically, using each other as shields. 1/3 of them fell to the werewolves' curses. Amidst the chaos, 2 young werewolves shielded Feeny from lethal attacks. Ralph, a little boss among the attackers, panicked. He hadn't expected the werewolves to defend Feeny so fiercely. Distracted, he failed to notice a spell flying toward him. He turned to dodge, but it was too late. The white light struck his magical barrier, shattering it and causing his protective pendant to fall. Just as he prepared to retaliate, he felt drowsy and closed his eyes, seeing a flash of green. Ralph was just a pawn in this war, and no one cared about his life. Both sides were focused on killing each other. As the battle raged, the alley became a scene of bloodshed and chaos. Feeny, too, had joined the fray, using the killing curse without hesitation. He summoned fierce fire, burning the corpses around him. In the madness, Finney found himself in danger. Only Lisa noticed something was wrong. She moved closer to Finney, determined to bring him back from the brink of madness. Take him away from here. Luckily, Lisa reacted just in time, otherwise, Finney would be in real danger. As Lisa rushed toward Finney, she spotted a short, mouse-like wizard approaching him. He raised his wand not far from Finney. Heart racing, Lisa sprinted to block the white light aimed at Finney. Blood sprayed as she landed, splattering on his face and snapping him out of his daze. Without checking on Lisa, Finney pointed his wand at the wizard, sending out a similar white light. The wizard shrank and turned into a mouse, scurrying into the sewer. Peter Pettigrew. Finney's eyes widened in disbelief. He had sent Peter to Azkaban months ago, where he should have waited for death after receiving the Dementor's kiss. How could he be involved in this ambush? And how could he hurt Lisa? Finney quickly looked down at Lisa, who was pale and struggling to breathe. Thankfully, the wizard had used the cutting curse instead of the killing curse. Otherwise, Lisa would be dead. But without immediate treatment, her condition could worsen. The battlefield was chaotic. Both Finney's werewolf wizards and the attacking black-robed wizards were irrational, attacking anyone around them, including their allies. Finney, with Lisa in his arms, dodged a cutting spell and reached the potion store door. Once inside, he would be safe. Behind the store was a small door leading to the backyard, where werewolf wizards often gathered. Finney had announced the war against vampires there. In the backyard was a cabinet with a secrecy spell, holding the door keys to the Black family's strongholds. With the potion shop breached, Finney feared the Aurors from the Ministry of Magic would arrive soon. He needed to destroy those port keys to keep the other strongholds hidden. Finally, Finney entered the potion store. The fighting had shattered potion vials, spilling liquids everywhere, especially the Wolfsbane potion. He cast iron armor spells on himself and Lisa as crazed wizards followed him inside. Luckily, their spells weren't lethal, allowing Finney's armor to hold. He conjured wooden dragons from the store's furniture to capture the black-robed wizards. Taking advantage of this, Finney rushed to the cabinet, but he froze. He didn't know the password to lift the secrecy spell. Only Lisa knew it, as it was meant to protect Finney's power, not the Black family's. Frantically, he tried various passwords, growing more anxious. Just then, a weak voice reached him. June 30th. It was Lisa, trying to stay conscious. Finney turned to her, shocked. The password was his birthday. He felt a wave of gratitude. Lisa had always been there for him, even when she teased him. She had protected him by erasing the location of number 12 Grimmauld Place from her memory. Without wasting time, Finney opened the cabinet, grabbed a door key, and placed it next to Lisa. He cast counterspells on the other keys, damaging them. Finney wasn't worried about forgetting the stronghold locations. Each one had a similar cabinet, and only Lisa knew the details. She had kept them secret but prepared cabinets to help Finney move between them. With the door key shaking in his hand, Finney and Lisa left the potion shop, leaving behind the trapped wizards. Not long after, the Aurors from the Ministry of Magic arrived, but like usual, they showed up too late to help. Finney had reasons to distrust the Ministry and knew they would likely hand over authority to the Malfoys and other pureblood families tied to the Black family. As the Aurors faced the irrational wizards, their leader shouted, "Quick, control them." An irrational wizard couldn't compete with a rational one. Knowledge is power, and without proper judgment, they would struggle. Did you spot Phineas Black? The Aurors seemed aware of the ambush but hadn't intervened, likely wanting Finney dead. Damn it, we're in trouble now. These Aurors belonged to the same faction, and their captain didn't hide his frustration. If Finney were there, he would recognize the captain as part of the rich family. As Finney and the injured Lisa arrived at a remote two-story cabin through the port key, he felt panic rise. The cabin was isolated, with no supplies or medicines. Finney knew he could apparate out, but Lisa's condition was critical. The curse wound on her chest had stopped bleeding, but she needed stability. Using the port key had weakened her, and another apparition could be fatal. Finney's anxiety grew. Puff was assigned elsewhere, and if he were here, he would have blocked the attack instead of Lisa. But now, he needed to find a way to heal her. Healed as before. Healed as before. Finney repeated the recovery spell, but the effect was minimal. Damn it. Repaired like new. In desperation, he used a spell he shouldn't have. As Lisa screamed, her wound improved, at least stopping the bleeding. But she was clearly in pain. Restoration and healing are similar spells. Reparo is for objects, while Episki heals living things. Hogwarts taught that these spells shouldn't mix, especially not on injuries. However, Finny understood the professor's warning better than most. Healing allows tissues to repair naturally, while restoration can cause secondary damage. Though it could cause more pain, it helped save Lisa's life. With her injury under control, Finny felt relieved. Lisa was a werewolf, and her healing abilities would kick in soon. The more pain she felt, the faster she'd recover.